A cloudy morning near John O'Groats, but just time for a quick flight over the farm and our farmhouse B&B. The cattle seemed unfazed by the drone, in fact unfazed by anything. The third day of our trip would turn out to be a very successful one. The weather was changeable, of course, but the plan was to travel along the north coast of Scotland, turning southwest towards the end of the day. And so we hit the road, and as we did so, the weather brightened. Quite suddenly and very welcome. A lovely drive along the coast. We stumbled across some beautiful coves and harbours, a photographer's paradise. But we were not far from Dounreay, which is certainly not a photographer's paradise. The very name Dounreay sounds foreboding, and local people were full of stories about incidents and comments like, "You don't want to know what's in there, or what goes on in there." But this was not always the case. In the 1950s, atomic energy was seen as a modern miracle which would save mankind. I do hope that those are not nuclear fuel rods. Nuclear power was modern, high-tech, and even space age. The legacy is quite different, and it may never be possible to fully clean up the contamination from radioactive leaks, of which there have been many over the years. And of course, whilst a diminished threat, there is still the threat of a nuclear holocaust. Anyway, on the road again, and the sun was still shining. Away from all of that dark nuclear holocaust stuff and on to some of the North Coast's most spectacular scenery. A break for coffee and a quick flight over some beautiful coastlines. Just look at those colours. Not what you would expect of northern Scotland at all. Sunny days. This bay was called Tongue. And so on to the middle of nowhere. The weather was changeable again, but the rain held off, and there was a feeling of leaving civilization behind. Like entering another world with few trees and not a lot of farming either. This was a truly isolated spot somewhere between Tongue and Loch Hope. But this remote spot would also throw up some surprises. This looked like just another abandoned farm dwelling. But step inside and it is an impressive, if somewhat macabre, work of art. I have no idea who created the art, or let alone why it was created. There are no signs and no explanations. Highland graffiti. And on to Loch Hope. The constantly changing light created yet another colour palette. In one morning we had seen grey, turquoise, and now an icy blue. Continuing our journey, we reached the Ardniki lime kilns, and the weather and colours were changing again. There is no bridge or ferry, I don't think, but it was a pleasant drive around Loch Erribol, and that brought us to the Smoo Caves. More weather changes and yet another type of lighting. Very clear and vivid light, both outside and inside the caves. beautiful intense colours in this clear light. Some hazy clouds came in, but they soon left us before we arrived at the famous Durness beach. I think we probably saw it at its best, as the light cloud covering showed the colours of the grass, water and sand with great intensity. But I think others are much more poetic in their description of this place.
It's a beautiful place. And when the water's gone over the sand at the bottom, it's almost turquoise. It looks like the Caribbean. You soon realise it's not the Caribbean when that water touches your scrotum. You go for the high jump record.
A great day, but it was by no means over. The road from Durness to Kinlochbervie, which is on Loch Inchard, took us through a very desolate glen, where it seems that the only landmark is a small bridge. And that's it. I didn't even notice the bridge. And so finally we arrived at the Braeside Bed and Breakfast, where we were welcomed by our friendly host Stuart. And he even gave me a can of Stella Artois to enjoy with my dinner. What a wonderful day.